very cool. I had actually a picture of it, and I was thinking, but I didn't mention what oh hello. Okay, I feel like I'm like giving out someone's password, you know. But like it's very cute. It says like לפתוח את הדלת, you know, כותבים ישועה. Like
that was
very, very beautiful. Yeah, it really opened my heart. So thank you. Okay, so we are in Parshas Baha'alotcha. There's like, you know, Baha'alotcha is such an amazing parsha, and there are like, I feel like there are three things that I always focus on. Last year I did actually did something totally different with the other group, but the menorah, right? Then there's Vahibin So'aron, which is what we're going to do today, and then there's V'ha'ish Moshe Ana Mikol Adam. So every time I open my books, I like get drawn into those, you know, inyanim. So today we're going to do Vahibin So'a, and it's such a cool idea. Just first of all, we're all obviously very familiar with these psukim. We say them whenever we take out the Aron, whenever we open the Aron Kodesh to take out the Torah, and we know that. Well, let's read them. Vahibin So'a Aaron, Vayomer Moshe. Okay, whenever the Aron would travel, Moshe would say, Kuma Adonai ve'afutzu oivecha ve'yanusu misanecha mipanecha. Stop, O Eternal, may your enemies be scattered, and may those who hate you flee from before you. And then there's another pasuk which we don't say on a regular basis, but this is the next pasuk. Ubenucho Yomar, and when it came to rest, he would say, Shuva Adonai rivavot alfei Yisrael. Rest, O Hashem, among the tens of thousands and thousands of Yisrael. Right? Rivavot alfei, like many, like thousands and thousands. So, and we know that this whole parsha is really, really the whole beginning of Sefer Bamidbar is the formation of the traveling, right? We did the thing about the flags and the camps and all that a couple weeks ago, but this idea that like this is a formation of, you know, of holiness essentially. And the formation of holiness also, right, there's also the other couple of psukim, you know, by Hashem's word they would camp, and by Hashem's word they would travel. And of course, that also includes the Aron, right? The Aron was obviously carried, we learned that last week, right, by Kahas, by the family of Kahas. But we know from all of our learning, right, that really was the Aron that carried them, not that they carried the Aron. And so that's really, it's like Am Yisrael traveled, but they traveled al pi Hashem and with the Aron traveling, right? Like Aron was like paving the way. And that's really what he's saying here. That's what the Torah is saying here. That Moshe would say, like, the enemies should be scattered before the Torah. Okay. Shame Hashem here on the page. Okay, so the Or HaChaim has this really amazing sort of foundational piece about what the traveling with the Aron was all about. Okay, Tzarich L'dat Kavanat HaMamar. Like, why do we say this? What are we trying to understand from the traveling of the Aron? V'yitba'er katuv al pi divreihem. So according to the Arizal, essentially, Sherashamnu Bakama Makomot, Shetam Halicha Israel Bamidbar, Hayta levarer nitzotzei hakdusha hashvuyot b'reshut shochen midbar tzia. That the traveling of the Midbar the traveling of the Aron, right, the traveling of Am Yisrael in the Midbar was to levarer nitzotzei hakdusha, to uplift or to clarify or to separate the sparks that the sparks of kedusha that had like come to rest or had come to be taken captive, really, shivuyot, that are trapped. That's really the word. That are trapped in the physicality of that desert. Okay, now what is that concept, right? Just in a very small nutshell, there's this idea that, there's a framework of creation where Hashem created many worlds before the world that we are currently living in. And he created them and he destroyed them, and he created them and he destroyed them, and he created them and he destroyed them until this one. And some of them were, but that underlies the foundation or the spiritual energy of our world. And part of our job in this world is to do things that will free those, that will fix what was destructive about those worlds, what was not good about those worlds. So I want to just be clear. It's not like Hashem made a mistake and he was like, oh, I made this world, but I guess it's not going to work, so we'll destroy it, right? He actively created and destroyed as a underlying foundation under this world. And that's why, sort of like, if things are left to themselves, they get destroyed. So, just as an example, a garden. What happens to a garden if you don't actively tend to it? Right, weeds, or it dies, or whatever. Okay. So the what's the word I'm trying to think of? The default mode of this world is not tikkun. Okay, is unhealthy things. And that's why our jobs feel so hard, right? Because even though Hashem is light and Hashem is goodness, but there's this underlying chomer, kind of, that it's our job to sort of actively fight against or actively fix, actively heal, like that.
That kind of gives a whole new spotlight on the Noah story and also on the stone story.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That people essentially kind of fall into negative behavior because of this underlying foundation.
Correct, but in other worlds, to say it was the entire world. Here we just had spots, and so maybe that was the beginning of the new. That's what saved the world. I don't know what I'm saying exactly.
Well, I mean, Hashem did some of the work for us, to put it that way, right? By with the flood, there actually was like a lot of that was kind of like cleaned up, like Ki'ilu, like we needed a lot of help, put it that way.
Right.
Okay? And it's our job. So the other idea, okay, that's connected to this is that when Hashem put his energy into the world, the original model was not the sefirot that we know of, which are like interconnected and kind of have like three lines, the right line, the left line, and the middle line, but that they were one on top of each other in a straight line, and that there was very much like ego involved, okay? Because they couldn't relate to each other. They were above or below each other only, not next to and not connected in sideways, horizontal sort of partnership, but rather in above and below. And the way that the books of Kabbalah describe it is that each of the sefirot, each of those like balls of energy, Ki'ilu, said like, I'll take it all. I'll take it all. Like I'll be the one that through whom Hashem's light most comes through. And each one tried to take on too much and didn't like allow the other ones to participate and to share the load. And because of that, they broke. And so when you say sparks, when we say like buried sparks or captured sparks, it's the shards and the light that came out of that egotistical, trying to take on more than what they could take on, breaking that couldn't hold Hashem's light, and therefore kind of like sparks went into all of ultimately what was creation. And what we do by doing a mitzvah, right? Every time we like take an apple and we make a bracha over the apple, there is an idea that within this apple could be embedded like a spark of too much ego or too much thinking that it has an individual identity, this piece of physicality, right? And when we make a bracha over it, we're reconnecting it to Hashem. We're like saying like, you know, blessed art thou, you know, who brings forth fruit, right? You're reconnecting the fruit to the concept that it was created by Hashem, and it's here to be used in the service of Hashem. Okay, and that's really, I mean, that was really in a nutshell, but like that's the idea of elevating sparks and doing mitzvahs to reconnect the world to its creator. That's the idea. You look like you want to say something.
Yeah, the sparks are actually potential that man has to bring out. But we learned it also from Priyat Olam that until there was rain, until man asked for rain, there was no growth, there was no grass.
Right.
So because God wanted man to be part of the process of the creation.
Right, absolutely. So again, I took a lot of different things and I kind of mushed them together all into this concept. But yeah, the whole idea is that we actually heal the world in a spiritual way in doing physical things, because that's how Hashem set up the system, because He wants us to be a part of it.
Can I ask you, is the carrying of the element as the Torah, is it the element of learning Torah?
Well, let's read. We're like literally didn't even start this. Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, that was just like the underlying idea, so that we understand like what we're even talking about. Okay. וצריך אתה לדעת כי החיצונים ישנם בשתי הדרגות. Okay, the חיצונים meaning the things that are holding this, that are trapping the sparks. Okay, the physicality, let's say that where physicality that's not being used for godliness yet, so it looks like it has a separate identity. It has two levels. Aleph hu b'chinat hamesit ve'hamefate lenidbak bo la'hara ve'la'ashchit. Okay, so the one category is like the mesit ve'hamefate is like to trick someone or to deceive them. Lenidbak bo la'hara ve'la'ashchit, to connect to negativity. Okay, so the first example would be physicality that is sort of set up as a way of tempting us away from serving Hashem. Okay? Should I give examples, or are we all clear about that? I mean, anything that it can be avodah zarah, but it can also just be something that becomes to me like avodah zarah, right? Like a food, a yummy food. It's right coming right on the heels of Shavuos, right? You know, when we have this unhealthy relationship with food, so that's like luring us away. It's causing us to give the food more energy than our connection to Hashem. And the second level, b'chinat hamezik ve'hamechabel ve'en b'tivo lifatot. Okay, and the other category is like a destructive force that is like trying to mezik mechabel is like mechabel, we all know, right? Like to harm the person, and it's not about tricking him. It's just like direct harm. Let's keep on going. Uval ma'amar kan vayivin so Aaron ki. Well, let me just explain. Right? There's like dangers out there. People are trying to kill us. Let's put it that way. Right? There's the things that we enable to have energy over us by thinking that it's by giving it too much importance, by being right. And then there's the things that actually are actively seeking, like a wild animal in the midbar. Okay, for example, is like a form of evil, let's say, right? That is actively trying to harm us. Okay, I'm sure we can think of other examples in the world today, unfortunately. Ubal ma'amar kan vayivin so Aaron kishenosea umidabkim bo kol mitzutzei hakdusha. Okay, so when the Aaron would travel, right, then these captive sparks would be drawn to it, because the Aaron was a form of magnet, we'll call it. Okay. Ukeshemitbarerim nitzotzei hakdusha mitpotzitzim umishtabrim haklipos. So when the holy sparks would be drawn to the Aaron, so then it was kind of like a form of breaking away from the klipot that were holding it. Okay, like just like if you held up if you had like a magnet encased in some kind of like glue or pottery, let's say, right? And the magnet was strong enough to, you held a strong magnet over it, and this lower magnet kind of broke the pottery to cleave on up to the. It was literally something that just happened like that. I'm trying to think what it was. That I thought something was going to like lift up out of. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, okay, it breaks out of the thing that's holding it back to connect to the aron. Vehu ma'amar kuma Hashem ve'yafutu oivecha. That the Hashem's energy is essentially scattering the enemies. Shehem haklipos hanechazot b'nitutzei hakdusha v'yitpotetzu. That these are the klipos that with they're holding on to the holy sparks, but now they're getting, sort of like they're falling apart, breaking apart, because these holy sparks are breaking out of their bonds. V'aleim ramaz b'tevat vayihi l'shon sa'ar. And so we understand that vayihi is always the language of, right? Vayihi b'mei achashverosh. Vayihi is like a negative, like a sad language, a language of pain, right? Vahaya is a good thing, like connotes happiness, and vayihi connotes sadness. Ukeneged b'chinat hara mefateh et ha'adam amar vayenusi misanecha mipanecha. So in this way, like there's like a negativity that is almost like the Torah is like bemoaning that there could be such a thing that the world could trick us into becoming overly afraid / dependent / giving it too much power, and that's why so it says vayenusi misanecha that the enemies should be, right, your enemies should be scattered. Perush otam b'chinot hamasni'im derech Hashem b'libot b'nei Adam yanusu. That the way that anything that we have against Hashem should be like scattered. I'll finish the paragraph and then we'll go through it. Va'amru lashon rabim letzad hayotam rabim hamefatim kemamaram zichronom livracha b'yuma sheyesh yetzahara shel avodah zara v'shel znut. Okay, so it says like the yetzahara is there's avodah zara and then there's znut, obviously, right? So what's it saying? That when we traveled with the aron, ki'ilu it was like there were so many dangers all around us in the midbar. We know that. We know that there were other nations who wanted to kill us. We know that there theoretically could have been like wild animals, right? But obviously there's also the internal dangers, which are much greater. There's the physical dangers. We're just talking about the midbar now, okay? So there was the physical dangers of other nations trying to kill us, or the conditions of the midbar, let's say, right? And then there was also the emotional problems, meaning even in this parsha we have the mitonani, right? We have people who are like, are we going to do this forever? Are we going to die here? Like that was always like a fear and we have Bnei Israel constantly going back to that, that default mechanism of like, did you bring us out here to die? Now in our own lives, right? We have physical dangers. We have ki'ilu, obviously, right? There's other nations that want to destroy us. We also have, on some level, just we have health things. We have, I literally crashed, like I tripped over something in my house the other day on Wednesday, and I went crashing down and had this massive bruise on my hip. So we have like those kinds of things, but of course, on top of that, really what's worse is like the fear, right? The fear. We're all sitting here thinking like, is there going to be a war? Isn't there going to be a war, right? Okay, there's a lot of fear like that. And in our own life, can I have a tissue? In our own lives, thank you, we have also our own fears, right? Like our family, the concerns we have for our children, the concerns we have for our, whatever, anybody, anyone around us, ourselves. Should I do this? Should I do that? A lot of doubt, a lot of fear. That's like also all around, okay? So just like in the Midbar, wherever the Aron was carried, so those things got like a boost, meaning our ability to fight off those things was strengthened because we were traveling with the Aron. So anytime, and I love just even the idea that, we understand that Hashem surrounded us with the clouds of glory, right? We had the pillar of cloud, we had the pillar of fire, it directed us everywhere, right? So that was almost like a prototype of like a way of tapping into Torah that would be very helpful, I feel. Like, so just like Am Yisrael saw that everywhere they went, the conditions were improved, right? They were walking on clouds. The wild animals didn't have any hold over them. There were no like mosquitoes biting them, right? And also, even the nations that did attack them, there was like this, there was a help from above to either fight them off or not even be bothered by them at all, right? So we know there was my daughter was just saying on her Bagrut just now, there was it on her Bagrut or was it I don't remember. One of my daughters was in a class where they were talking about oh gosh, I can't even remember. The story that Am Yisrael go through this mountain pass, and was it like Moab that was waiting to attack them there? And the mountains pushed together, right? And then they saw just right in the river beneath, they saw like blood and dead bodies and stuff like that, and they understood that this was like Hashem literally fought the battle for them, like, that there was like that the enemy was waiting in the crevices of the mountain to shoot at them, and Hashem pushed the mountains together, and that way the enemy got literally smushed. So that's like this idea, Vayanusi misanecha mipanecha, that the Aron was the mechanism in a way through which all of that happened. Okay? Does that make more sense now? Right? And in a spiritual sense, for us, right, we say, Vayihi binto Aron, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Hashem, Vayafutzu oivecha v'enus misanecha mipanecha. Literally every time we take out the Torah. So there's also this idea that our Torah, not the Aron, the one Aron that once, that existed, that carried the luchos, right? The luchos and the broken luchos, but also our own Torah, or our own Aron that contains our Torah, also has that kind of spiritual power for us. That the more we lidabek, right? The more we connect ourselves, attach ourselves to the Torah, the more Bezrat Hashem we should see, that our enemies get scattered, whether those are physical enemies or spiritual or emotional enemies, in our own personal lives, right? And that's like the idea that the more when we see the Torah as like the way that these things are going to get scattered, so then we actually empower it to be that for us. The kol zeh b'insoa, perush b'derech nesiyah, where this is all through traveling. Okay? K'shaya choneh haya omer ba'ofen acher, because when we settled, when we camped, we would Moshe Rabbeinu would say it in a different way. Ki Hashem ki haya, I think, k'shechoneh b'makom echad yagid bazeh ki hamakomot shelo chana sham לא היה שם בעבור ניצוצי הקדושה שיצטרך לחנות שמה ויספיק מעבר דרך שם. Okay, so sometimes we camped in places and other times we just traveled through them, right? So there's always this, there's obviously like different levels of what needs to happen in a certain place, because if we camped there, we were there for longer. And when we passed through there, we were there for shorter. So it could be that those places, he's going to say, right, that the places that we just passed through, that it was either easier to release the sparks, or there were less sparks that needed to be released. It was less dangerous for us in a way. ובמקום אשר יכנה שם יגיד, כי שם יש ניצוצי הקדושה שצריך להתעכב בשבילם שם. Okay, that in the places that we camped, there were like, we needed to stay there for longer because whether they were stuck more deeply or it was it's like if you know, sometimes you have like a medicine or an illness and, you know, you only need to take a medicine once and, you know, that scatters it away. And other times, you have like to take an ongoing medicine for a few weeks. And only then, you know, can it be uprooted, can it be healed. So, and we also know in our lives, right, there are things that I really only had to work on this once. This was like was not such a big midah or a big problem for me that I need to like work on this so hard. I had to do, like, let's say when I started keeping kashrut, let's say. Truthfully, it wasn't such a, like, I mean, I lived in New York, and I mean, I grew up keeping kosher in my house and not out or whatever, like how we say it like that. So I guess you could say that there were like a few restaurants that I had gone to in my life that maybe I missed them or maybe I didn't, whatever it was, right? But for me, it wasn't so, or let's say for someone else, it may have been harder to give up those restaurants or that restaurant life. For me, that wasn't such a big challenge. There were other things that were very big challenges, but that wasn't them. That wasn't one. So all I had to do was like make the decision once, and it was like, okay, I'm not eating in those places. So that's like Vayhi Soa, Aron. Okay, you pass by there, you kind of make the decision, and it's easy. Or certain character traits that we work on, and it was like, oh, one person told you one time that maybe an insight into like why you do something, and you're like, oh, that's the insight? Oh, so now I don't have to ever do that again. Like that, it's not something that's so sticky for you, right? But then there's other things that are much stickier that, you know, it's not enough just to make the decision once. We have to make the decision over and over and over again. We have to work on it again and again. It's not just one insight, it's many layers of insights that we need. So that's the Vayachanu, okay? ועל זה היה מכוון משה ואומר, בנוחו שובה השם רבבות אלפי ישראל. So that's when Moshe Rabbeinu said, you know, rest here, okay, and amongst all the thousands of Am Yisrael. Perush sheyashiv nitzotzei hakdusha. He was talking to the nitzotzot. He was talking to the sparks. לקבל כל הרבבות ואלפים הנקראים ישראל, כי יש כל ניצוצי הקדושה יקראו ישראל. That he's sort of like, he was like kind of calling to them, because there's a lashon of calling the nitzots also Yisrael. So he's saying like, rest here amongst the tens of thousands and thousands of Yisrael. He's like calling the nitzotzot to be released, you could say. Ve'ulai sheramaz b'tevat alfei lashon ma'ala ve'rabanut. That alfei, right, thousands is a language of aluf, like a general over who commands thousands. ותמצא כי ניצוצי הקדושה אשר שווה סמך מם הרשע היו רבים ונכבדים וצא ולמד whatever, you know what, we're gonna skip that part. It's too complicated for us right now, but basically the nitzotzot, or the character traits, or anything that should be in holiness and is being swayed to not holiness. So by using the word alfei, Moshe Rabbeinu in a way gave us like control over them, right? This whole idea is like that, literally through saying "Vayhi Aaron." So let's go to the last line. V'yechaven Moshe bazeh להתפלל ולהתעצם כוח קדושת ישראל בעזר השם לנצח ולברר כל אשר יימצא במקום ההוא. That through saying this, but basically Moshe Rabbeinu was a way of davening and to gather the strength of like to rely on, or to focus, you could even say, the holiness of Am Yisrael, to like draw these nitzotzot out and be minatzeach over them, like to be victorious over them, to levarer them, to control them, anything that's found in that place. Okay, so what does this have to do with us? Because obviously this was a one-time thing for the Midbar, but everything that happened in the Midbar, like we learned from the Sfat Emet the other day, that anything that happened in the midbar that is actually like a paradigm for us, that it gave us kochot to do the same things, okay? So in our vayanusu, in our travels of our life, okay? And there are many, in Chassidus, vayanusu is also nisayon, okay? In the challenges of our life. So what do we have to hold on to? We have the Torah to hold on to, that the Torah helps give us, strength to v'yafutzu oivecha, okay? V'yanusi mizanecha mipanecha, that through gathering our strength, through learning, through being connected to Torah, being connected to Hashem, our learning, that it gives us added strength to clarify what's going on in our life, to fight whatever physical enemies we have, to fight whatever emotional and spiritual enemies we have. Like each one of us in our microcosm, Am Yisrael as a begadol, and it's all based on that they did this over and over again in the midbar. And the midbar is always a model, like a I guess whatever paradigm, let's call it, for overwhelming negative energy, whether it's physically demanding or spiritually demanding. That's what the midbar stands for, overwhelming negative energy. So by their moving around in the midbar, and really at this point in the Torah, theoretically it was only going to be, a few more weeks, right? It ends up being 40 years altogether. So part of why we're learning this, okay? This is what I know it was like a little bit of a complicated piece, but part of why we're learning this is like that when you feel like you can do something, it gives you the koach to do it. When we feel like, I must say that, I would say yesterday, I guess, I don't know, maybe I felt like I was catching up is like whatever, on all the social media that I missed over Yom Tov and Shabbos. I mean, it's horrendous out there. There's so much to be overwhelmed by. And it's so easy to get, to let it overwhelm you, to get stuck in it, to go into that space and let that space pull you in, drag you down, right? So let's say I'm a nitzotz, okay? That's what it's saying here in a way, okay? That everyone amongst Israel is a nitzotz, okay? Is a spark, right? And I can get stuck, I can get trapped in the negativity of the news and the anti-Semitism and the fear, and even in, even the stuff that's going on in Am Yisrael, right, is Kal Chomer, sometimes even more affects us in a way. And the whole point is that I started to feel hopeless. And that is what happens when we get overwhelmed. We feel like, oh my gosh, like, I have no chance to fight this off. We have no chance to fight this off. Chas v'shalom, chas v'chalila, right? The Aron, in moving through the midbar with Am Yisrael, literally gave us the koach to fight off all of the negativity in the world. Because the midbar literally was the paradigm for evil and negativity and overwhelmingness. And we fought it off. We made it through. Meaning, eventually, Am Yisrael do cross over into Eretz Yisrael, right? And that's the idea.
I don't quite understand. The notzot get released, the kedusha gets released. Where does it go?
Connects back to Hashem. Right, back to source, right? So the nitzotzot, it's like a little bit of a confusing concept because it's not just one nitzotz of one time, right? It could be many layers of nitzotzot that little bit by little bit get returned to source, and we're like we have that in our own lives, like places where the nitzotz inside of us is stuck in something negative, right? And that's what this is, the camping and the traveling, right? That place where I'm stuck in negativity, I need to camp there with the Aron. I need to camp there with the Aron. I need to camp there with Torah. I need to use Torah to focus energy on that thing, that mindset, that feeling, and through continuously sort of like dosing myself with, with prescribed levels of Torah, right? Then I'm able to release more and more and more of that spark out of its captivity, and that means
Continue on my journey.
continue on my journey, come closer to Hashem. It stops blocking me from feeling Hashem's light.
It's a comfort. It's a comfort to know that, meaning that a lot of times, like, we think to ourselves, like, we have so much on our plate, and it's like very hard, and like you get into this like funk.
Right.
Like to think but when you take it like to that level, and you say also like that there's this tikkun and this, you know, and that you have a part, and you say to yourself, okay, so then my job is just that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trusting in me. And when we talk about the Torah, and we have to turn to the Torah, there's beautiful things in the Torah, and there's lovely stories, but there's also a lot of musar, and there's a lot of lessons and life lessons that when you look at it and you say to yourself, they were there, they got out of it, and you know, it's a beautiful comfort.
Right. Yeah. So that's really what this piece. That's why I was like, this is so much chizuk.
Yeah.
This is so much chizuk, right? That
I
they
think it's a spark. It's like it's nice. It's just
right.
you just think I'm
it's hidden
doing
potential.
my job
and
and what it is.
It's
It
like
takes it to a level that's a little higher.
right, right. Also, I was like, look, I was learning something yesterday about like personality traits, right, in us. And part of what we were doing through Sfirat HaOmer was like trying to take all, you know, every personality trait has a positive aspect and a negative aspect. And, you know, we all have a mixture of, you know, using these personality traits for positivity and negativity, but there could be certain personality traits where we're more, we have a tendency to err, you know, to be drawn towards the negative way of using it. And the more there's something that's pulling us to use it in a negative way, right? A certain relationship that, you know, triggers us to go there, or, you know, an unhealed space in us is pulling us to use that personality trait in a negative way. But literally there's a natural sort of, consequence isn't the right word, but what happens naturally, right? A result, let's put it, right? A natural result. When I release that negative character trait from being used in a negative way, it automatically reverts to its positive way, right? And that's also part of this. So anyway, I give us a bracha just for this piece, with this piece that we kind of like tap into this idea that, you know, learning Torah and using Torah as a way of fighting off and of like drawing the kedusha out of the places that it's trapped, you know, fighting off the negativity and the overwhelm and the hopelessness by knowing, you know, who's ultimately in charge.
That's part of when you're sitting with somebody who's sick in the hospital, instead of concentrating on them and everything they're going through, when you take a sefer Tehillim, you refocus yourself on something else, and you're not thinking so much about the illness, but you're thinking that you're connecting.
Right. So this is actually a Torah that you can have in mind when you're doing that, right? Meaning your words of Tehillim are vayafutzu misanecha, right? Vayafutzu odecha v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha. You're literally breaking through the negative energy that's in the room, right there, with these words of Torah. That's literally what it is. That's the image that's in my head. It's like the Aaron was like crashing through walls, right? And all words of Torah do that. So that's beautiful. It's like the images. I have these images that kind of flash through my head as I'm learning these pieces. Okay, now obviously we don't have enough time for everything here, so I'm gonna just pick which way do I want to go. Okay, let's do the Koshner Tsunami. Avodas Yisrael. Okay. I have the vowels here. This is on Safari they don't have the vowels, so I just have the vowels here. I'm going to read the vowels. Okay, Remes ha'aron l'talmid chacham shenikra aron. Okay, so it says that the Aron HaKodesh is also like a way of hinting at a Talmid Chacham who's also called Aron. But in the Gemara it says Kmo she'amru al ma'amar Chazal shekorin la'aron Arna. That Arna is a way, like when we don't say Aron HaKodesh and we just say Aron, it's actually like he's going to say this in here. כי התלמיד חכם נקרא ארון על שם הלוחos והתורה שניתנו בו, right? Like a Talmid Chacham contains Torah, right? Just like the Aron HaKodesh contained the luchos, yeah? And the Torah is eventually that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. והוא מבוזה בעיני המון וקוראים להם ארנם בלשון ביזיון. Okay, but the Gemara says that it actually becomes like an insult to call someone an Aron, because I guess you're not saying Aron HaKodesh, I guess you're just calling them an Aron. That's what the Gemara says, that it's a language of bizayon, it's a language of...
That means casket, anyway. Aron is a casket.
Oh, interesting. I mean, it also means a closet.
Closet.
Right, so, but it says in the Gemara that it's like a language of bizayon. You're ki'ilu calling them an Aron. You're not actually, you're not calling them an Aron HaKodesh. Let's just say it like that, okay? V'hinei derech hatzadik litzkarev leboro dvar yom b'yomo. So it's the way of tzaddikim to try to come closer to Hashem every day a little bit more. Every day with a different thing. אכן למי שהבורא ברוך הוא רוצה בו, מנסהו בכמה ניסיונות אם יעמוד בם. Right? But the Kosher Tzemagi talks about nisyonot a lot, okay? So he says that it's the way of Hashem when, when Hashem wants someone to grow, okay? Rotzebo, he wants something from him, really. So he tests him with different tests to see if he can withstand them. ואז אם יתחזק ויעמוד על משמרתו, אז יעלה למעלה גדולה ונפלאה. And if the person can strengthen themselves and maintain their standing, right? Then they'll grow bigger and bigger. So let's just take a second to talk about that, okay? That, right? Doesn't sound so nice. That Kamosha Katuv, sorry, let's just say this. כמו שכתוב במדרש, קח את הלוויים, זה כתוב, I think. היה צדיק יבחן, השם צדיק יבחן? I don't know. Take the Levim, and one of the things is, what did the Levim have to do? They had to, first of all, they had to carry all the things, right? But also they had to shave all their hair off. It was like one of the things that Korach has a problem with, okay? His wife had a problem with, fine. Okay? But basically it says that, yeah, Hashem tzaddik yivachen. Okay, that Hashem tests the tzaddik. אין הקדוש ברוך הוא מעלה את האדם לשורה עד שבוחן ובודק אותו וכולו, okay? עיין שם. So Hashem doesn't lift up a person until, l'sarara, meaning to leadership, to royalty, let's call it, okay? Until he checks him, tests him, exactly, okay? And literally, a test is exactly what we were just talking about in this piece, right? Meaning, when the going gets tough, when I get knocked by something, do I give up, or do I mechazek myself and say, okay, this is clearly a test from Hashem, and I was just telling someone this story that well, whatever. I could say a chatan, but I'll say it's my son. Okay, so my son. I remember a few years ago he was very, very down. He hadn't met his wife yet, Baruch Hashem. You all know he got married last year, thank God. But a couple of years before that, or a year before that, before he met her, he was really down, and he was very, very, really, really wanted to get married very badly, and it just wasn't going. And he was at some place, and he decided that he was going to. Someone said that he learned in something that he said that it's a good idea to learn a chapter of Tanya every day. The first book of Tanya, which is 53 chapters, which we just finished last week in the yearly cycle of Tanya. The first book we finished, so it's 53 chapters. So if you learn a chapter a day, then it's a segula to meet your basher. Fine. So he undertook this. Now that's no small task, because the chapters, some of them are pretty lengthy, and you know, it's Tanya, so it's not easy, right? So he did it, and he was like so excited to do it. He was like, you know, sort of like with the really with the finish line in his sights, and then he didn't meet her, right? He did nothing, not even a date. Like there was not even an inkling that there was anyone. So he told me this. So he said he felt like Hashem was testing him. Like, are you gonna give up, or are you gonna? So he was like, I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna do it again, right? Just to show Hashem that I really want this. I'm serious. I'm not gonna let this little setback set me back. I'm gonna do it again. So he did it a second time, and the second time, also no dates in sight, nothing. Okay. He then there was something that was he really fell at that point for I don't remember how long. A few weeks, a few days, I can't remember exactly what happened, but he like fell, he gave up. He's like, ugh, you know, I can't, clearly this isn't working, I don't know what to do, it's never gonna happen, I'm never gonna be never, right? As soon as you get into that space of never, you know, like, that's a bad place to be in. But it was like a few, I don't know how, it was probably a few weeks. I don't think it was a few months, but I think it was a few weeks. Definitely wasn't a few days. It was a few weeks, let's put it that way. He decided, he got it into his head, like Hashem helped him to open his heart again. And he said like, oh, now I see what you're doing, Hashem, right? Both of those were just, it was just a test. I'm gonna do it again. And Baruch Hashem, in the middle of the third time that he was doing it, he actually got suggested our daughter-in-law, and the last chapter was the day that they got engaged.
Oh.
Now, obviously there could have been a fourth and a fifth time needed. And that's really the key. I mean, who among us has the strength to do that? I don't know. But we understand that that's actually how the world works, right? Meaning like every time we feel like we're being knocked down, it's all for the purpose of building those muscles of getting back up again, right? It would be great if it didn't have to work like that, but that's how the system works. We get knocked down, and we strengthen ourselves by getting back up.
That's also emunah, though. You haven't
Totally.
mentioned that.
Yeah, it is emunah. By definition, that's emunah.
Right.
Getting back up is by definition emunah, right? All of this, l'achzik et atzmeinu, to strengthen ourselves, is literally, what are you strengthening yourself with? So interesting. I had a survivor, Yosef Levkovich, who passed away in December of 2024. Hashem, his neshama should have an aliyah, and his whole family, Hashem should be in Kom Damam. And also, he was an amazing person. And also, Zuchuto Yagen Aleh, we'll say it like that, all of those things. So, one time I called him on a bus heading to Krakow with a group of college students from the University of Texas. And we weren't gonna be able to, he wasn't there with us, but we had his number, and we called him. I think we were gonna we were davening in his shul that night. That was the thing. And so we wanted to make a connection with him, so we called him. And the rabbi on the trip, he said to him, give us how did you, because he was from, right? He was from, he had a few years off in the middle after the Shoah. He was a teenager when he survived. His whole family had been killed, but ultimately he became from again, returned to his roots, and he lived his life, in a connection to Torah. And the rabbi said to him, how did you maintain your emunah in Hashem? So he said, well, what else was I going to hold on to? Was I going to hold on to a lamppost? Those are literally his words, right? Holding on, that's literally what emunah is, holding on to Hashem. Okay? All right. So he says, Zahine, b'shas hanisayon, shehu yerida letzorech aliyah. Always, a test is a descent for the purpose of ascending, for the purpose of growth, kanal, like what we said above. Ha'inyan hu kamo ha'oleh b'ma'alit hasulam. It's like a person who's climbing a ladder. Ashir midei tzarich la'alot al hashliv hagavoha. I think it's supposed to be, that's why I like to read from this. El hashalav. Sorry, this is from Safari, so it wasn't a scan, but okay. Midei tzarich la'alot al hashalav hagavoha. Right? When you have to go to the higher rung, what happens? Oker regel achad mishalav shetachtiv. Right? You take off your foot from the step from the rung below, okay? And you're gonna put it on the next one, but for a few seconds there, you only have one leg on the ladder and possibly only one hand on the ladder, right? So in that moment, v'nishar omed karega v'raglo achat al hasula v'raglo achat ba'avir. You have one leg on the ladder and one leg in the air. Ve'az tzarich adam shmira v'avchana shelo yipol chas v'shalom. Right? That's the moment that you need the most guarding and the most like wisdom, essentially, right? Like what to do, how to hold on. V'chen ha'inyan hazeh ba'avodas Hashem. And so too, this is exactly what it is in avodas Hashem. B'shas ha'nisayon af al gav sheya'aleh achar kach yoter gavoa. So you're gonna go to a higher place in the right after the nisayon, but during the nisayon, that is the moment when you have only one leg on the ladder. Mikol makom b'shas ha'nisayon nishar omed kamo al regel achad ve'az tzarich shmira gedola v'chizuk. Hashem yishmor lanetzach kol hachozim bo, right? That's the moment that you need the chizuk. That's what we're talking about here. That's the moment when you need to dafka say, I'm going to shir. I'm not going to shir. I'm gonna daven. I'm not gonna not daven. This is right. It's dafka. It's the hardest time to do those things. But with this Torah in our back pocket, maybe Be'ezrat Hashem, we should have the strength to understand that this is exactly what we're doing by learning these Torahs. And that's what the Torah means when it says in the traveling of the Aron, Klomar, so that's what it says, right? A Talmid Chacham is called an Aron, but like a Talmid Chacham or any of us, when we're going from level to level in our learning or in our life, let's say, okay? So we're in this mode of traveling. Vayomer Moshe, Kolomar sheitpalel al hatzadikim, that we should daven, okay? We should daven al hatzadikim. It's saying like when a tzaddik is traveling, so we daven. Let's call ourselves tzaddikim, okay? We daven. Vayomer Moshe means we're davening, okay? Kuma Hashem v'hayeh el be'ezratam shelo yiplu chas v'shalom, right? That kuma Hashem. So Hashem should help us to keep on going up, right? To get up and not to fall. Ve'adarabba yitchazku v'ya'alu yoter v'yoter, and you know, on the contrary, to strengthen ourselves and be able to put that foot on the next rung of the ladder. Ve'yafutu oivecha, and our enemies should be scattered. Ve'yanusu misonecha, and they should be, and the haters should flee from us. Klomar shelo yeh az achiza l'chitzonim bahem ad ya'avor amcha Hashem amen. That they shouldn't have any. It shouldn't have a stronger hold on us than the words of Hashem, let's call it. Okay, so when we're in those moments, like again, bless us to have this image, right? That in those moments of nisayon, like when I fell, right, and my hip was like exploding with fire, with pain. So literally, I was on my way to preparing a shir, and I was thinking like, I don't have the chizuk, like the cheshek, that's what I mean. I don't have the strength, like ow, really in pain. I wanted to just like cry and like say like, really Hashem? Like I was on my way to preparing a shir. I literally was going to wash my hands, Nagelwasser, in order to write down this idea that had come to me, and then I fell. And I was thinking like, Hashem, do you not want me to share that idea? Like, do you not want, And then I had this image of like, or I didn't have this image, but now I will have this image, right? Vayihibin so Aaron, right? Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Hashem, Vayafutzu oivecha v'yanusu misenecha. That in the getting up, literally, physically getting up from the floor and, going to wash my hands, and then I did go to do the shir. So, I mean, not that I'm like tooting my own horn or anything like that, but literally I'm like picturing myself doing that and thinking like, wow, that's exactly what this is, right? That we get up and we try again. We get up and we say like, oh, okay, that was a fall, and we give ourselves. We should be able to, Be'ezrat Hashem, give ourselves the chizuk, this image of, right? Oh, it was because my leg was dangling, right, on the ladder. I was that was the test, and now I'm going to put it, and where I put it will actually be a step up, right?
But that process could also be a talich, not just an immediate.
Of course, the ladder is. I was just going to say the ladder is infinite, right? But Meaning the talich is ongoing, as long as we're alive, this is what we're doing. We're holchim, we're olim, that's what we're doing.
If you get scared and walk down again.
Then you mechazik yourself and you kuma.
And
Right?
I just don't there.
I mean, sometimes it feels like we're going over the same step over and over and over again. That's vayechanu, right? That's the encampment that we need to strengthen ourselves for a longer period of time. Bezrat Hashem. Okay, should all be strengthened by this Torah and to remember this Torah when we need it. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry for the lateness and. Bezrat Hashem. Shavua tov.